Okay, in the first video we did a brief introduction to the model phase where we discussed the buckle bite articulation, the editing the model, and a brief introduction to the actual set model axis stage as you see here. So in this first example I want to go into a little bit more detail to the set model axis. Let's just start with a very simple single unit crown in the posterior. Now technically a single unit crown is not going to make a whole lot of difference. You know, you're going to get a good proposal even if you just line it up straight down the middle here and get it set up. But just out of habit I would prefer to go ahead and set it into the arch. So get it where it goes in the arch, so it's tooth number 14. So we're going to go ahead and set this into the axis just as so. And now I'm going to use this bottom layer just to kind of center that so I can see both the contacts on the mesial and the distal. And then we'll use the top one to kind of rotate it in the buccal lingual direction to make sure that we've got proper draw. So this is kind of my what I would do on this stage, get everything lined up perfectly. And the idea is if we go ahead and move forward, notice in the inLAB software we don't have a distal and a mesial and a buccal and lingual. Everything is determined by that set model axis. So I can go ahead and draw the margin. Just quickly do that. Okay. Now when I hit set insertion axis, what's going to happen is it's going to go ahead and bring up this little bullseye on the left. And if I look around here, you can see, remember in the chair side is we set our insertion axis like this. Well, this is actually not going to make any difference because you notice as I move this, it's not letting me move forward. Okay, you have to hit OK to this insertion axis, and this yellow arrow actually is showing you the path of the insertion, or the path of the milling basically. So I don't particularly like this, so what we're going to do is I'm going to move that to a more correct area there. Okay, so that's setting my path of milling. Maybe we'll even move it a little bit more. Kind of my rule of thumb is when I'm looking at that is you almost want to see you want to line up the model to how you want it to, so you can see everything, and you want to see that little yellow dot there. Once you do that, you can go ahead and hit OK, and then go ahead and move forward and get your proposal. Okay, and so there's your proposal. So it lines up the crown very nicely. You get a beautiful proposal by doing it that way. Okay, conversely, if I go back and let's say that I messed my model axis up and I want to do something like this. So I don't pay attention, I have a really bad model axis. We go ahead and move forward, and notice if I rotate the model, look at the way that the model is the axis of the model. Now, can I get a good proposal with this? Sure. If I actually on a single unit, if I make sure that my restoration axis is correct, or excuse me, my defined insertion axis is milling on the correct path, it's going to give me a good proposal. My guess is, it's not going to be bad. So there it is. I mean, not as good as the first one, but it's not too terrible either. But let's go back and say if you don't pay attention to what you're doing on this defined insertion axis, and we have the insertion axis coming from a really wonky angle, and we go ahead and get a proposal there, now you're going to really see the effect. It's trying to mill, the path of milling is going to be wrong. You're going to get a really, really bad proposal. So you got to pay attention to both. They both matter, especially when you get into multiple bigger unit cases. You want to make sure that your model axis is set correctly. You want to make sure that you define your insertion axis of your milling correctly, and you'll be fine and you get great proposals.